Allahu Akbar, la ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah. RT 5. Itu rumah itu ada yang laki-laki.
إن شاء الله اليوم بعد صلاة الفجر السيل في وادي الحجر خلف السيفوي الجمعة اليوم الجمعة. مسجد خليل الرحمن السيفوي اليوم الجمعة التاريخ 13/3/2020. ما شاء الله سيل اللي خلف السيفوي غرق بعض المناطق. بسم الله ما شاء الله.
التجمع بتفرح. التجمع بتفرح. حد واخد باله من دي؟ العربيات.
شوف البحر يا عم. صور يا عم صور.
اهي العربية تحت هناك اهي، عربية نقل. ده الطريق وده المكان. احنا هنا يعني كأننا في بحر، الدنيا ضايعة، في ناس مش عارف، الله أعلم الله أعلم مين اللي موجود ومين اللي فقد ومين مش عارف. بس انتوا لازم تصلوا لنا، انتوا لازم تصلوا لنا يا جماعة، ولو في إنقاذ سريع.
Tensions flared at Woolworths Chullora around 7 o'clock this morning when 3 women became involved in a toilet paper tussle.
I just want one pack. No, not one pack.
Staff rushed to aisle 11 to intervene.
Yeah, it's unfair. You need to stop. Call the police. I'm calling the police.
It's not the Thunderdome. It's not Mad Max. We don't need to do that.
Officers spoke to a 49-year-old woman who told them she'd been assaulted. No arrests have been made, but police are looking for the other 2 women.
It's just bad behaviour by people that are panicking, and there's no need for any of that panic.
Woolworths released a statement saying, "We will not tolerate violence of any kind from our customers in our stores, and we are working with police who are investigating the matter."
This is a time for people to remain calm, a time for Australians to pull together, to work together, to respect their fellow citizens.
Health authorities are urging people not to bulk buy, concerned the elderly and other vulnerable groups will suffer.
There's no reason to have months' worth of supplies at home. It makes no sense whatsoever.
Coles and Woolworths have placed temporary limits of 4 packets of toilet paper per customer, which Coles says should last the average family of 4 around 12 weeks. The supermarkets say they're working closely with suppliers to restock the shelves as quickly as possible, with manufacturers increasing production to meet the unusual demand. But with supermarket shelves still empty, customers are clearly fed up.
Just very typically Australian.
In what way?
Shameful.
Are they going to stockpile it under their house? I have no idea.
Waiting 3 days, no got it.
Some are resorting to paper napkins as an alternative.
This dad, just released from quarantine, wanted everyone to know he was doing just fine. But watch what happens as he and his 5-year-old daughter appear on Fox News.
It is contagious, but the death rate is pretty low.
Frank Wusinski and little Annabelle spent 2 weeks in quarantine after returning from Wuhan, China, where his father-in-law died of coronavirus.
Excuse me.
Now, Frank can't stop coughing, so he takes a swig from his daughter's water bottle, hands it back, and she continues to drink from it. Uh-oh.
The cough, probably just nerves.
He appeared on TV to reassure people about coronavirus, but it backfired because of that coughing fit.
Frank, thank you.
Video of the interview is going viral amid worldwide anxiety as the coronavirus spreads across the globe. Epidemiologist Dr. Saira Madad says 40% to 60% of Americans may contract coronavirus, many of whom will show no symptoms.
40 to 60% of us, that sounds crazy. I mean, should we all be freaking out at this point?
The majority of the cases are going to be mild. We will obviously have a number of severe cases and then even a smaller percentage of that are going to be in the critical range.
It's Free Fall Friday on Wall Street as worldwide markets continue to tank in the wake of the global health crisis. It's the 7th straight day of big losses, the worst since the financial crisis of 2008, as investors fear the coronavirus could lead to a recession.
There's a saying on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. The mouse is yelling, "Keep the cheese, just let me get out of the trap." And that seems to be what's happening. People are selling and running away.
The Pope canceled all Friday appearances amid speculation he may have contracted coronavirus. The Vatican continues to insist he has a slight indisposition.
Hundreds of shoppers rush into a Los Angeles Costco this morning with this warning. Supplies are being rationed to keep up with the unprecedented coronavirus panic shopping. Customers run down store aisles at full speed and then quickly start loading up their carts.
Within moments of this Costco opening, a sea of shoppers came back to this area where the water and paper goods are stored.
Our camera crews were allowed exclusive access inside the store before it opened.
This Costco is getting deliveries around the clock. As you can see, a lot of water and paper goods, and within an hour, all of this will be gone.
All part-time employees are working full-time shifts. Merchandise stocker Hector Flores says he's never seen demand like this, even on Black Friday.
It's just hectic. As you can see, they're stocking this high. It's never been this high. These pallets have come from the dock. We're backed up just a bit.
Is it a nightmare to keep all of this in stock?
It goes quick.
General Manager Thad Calez says customers were waiting up to 3 hours for supplies to be restocked, so now some products are limited to 2 items each.
Right now there is a limit on paper goods, all tissues, paper towels, and water.
At checkout, hundreds of shoppers, some wearing masks, are eager to take their ration supplies home.
Why are you stocking up? Are you concerned?
Very.
So what have you come here to buy?
Water, toilet paper, hand sanitizer, canned goods.
Good evening. The World Health Organization says Europe is now the epicenter of the global coronavirus pandemic. The news emerged as organised sport, both professional and amateur, across much of the UK, came to a standstill because of the outbreak. The Premier League, English Football League and Scottish matches have all been halted until the 3rd of April. In rugby, all Six Nations matches have been cancelled this weekend, and next month's London Marathon has been postponed. In the UK, 798 people have now been infected, up by 208 since yesterday. But it's thought the actual number may be much higher. 11 people have now died here, and the government says it expects more deaths in the weeks and months to come. We'll have more on an extraordinary day for sport in a moment, but first, here's our medical correspondent, Fergus Walsh.
This is Italy, one of the most advanced healthcare systems in the world. In the northern city of Brescia, they're reduced to treating patients in warehouses and tents because of coronavirus. Italy has the worst outbreak by far in Europe, but other countries are catching up.
Europe has now become the epicenter of the pandemic, with more reported cases and deaths than the rest of the world combined, apart from China.
Denmark announced it is closing its borders to foreigners from tomorrow. Nearly a dozen European countries have now imposed border controls. In Spain, a state of emergency will come into effect tomorrow, which could see restrictions on movement. The Foreign Office has advised against all but essential travel to Madrid and some other regions. France announced it is limiting gatherings to no more than 100 people. The Eiffel Tower and other key monuments and museums will close. A shutdown of schools will last at least 2 weeks. All of Europe wants to avoid scenes like these in Italy, but the UK's approach is in stark contrast to measures taken elsewhere. So what is the science behind the government's delay strategy? Well, if no action was taken, there'd be a huge peak of cases crammed into a few weeks, well above the capacity of NHS intensive care units. The government's aim is to flatten that peak and have more of the cases towards the summer when the NHS is better able to cope. That strategy only works if we all follow the new advice. If you have a continuous cough or a fever, a temperature above 37.8 degrees, you stay at home for a week. It's reckoned if that happens, it'll cut the peak of cases by 20%.
I'm about to do an online shop so that my daughter can have some microwave meals in and get herself food, because I shouldn't be preparing food for other people.
Sophie Rivet began self-isolating today after waking up with a fever. She's a single mum with a 13-year-old daughter.
And every time I use a room, I'm wiping down the surfaces.
The government acknowledges that millions of us may get COVID-19 in the coming months because the virus can't be stopped.
Our aim is not to suppress it completely. Also, because most people, the vast majority of people, get a mild illness, to build up some degree of herd immunity as well, so that more people are immune to this disease and we reduce the transmission. At the same time, we protect those who are most vulnerable from it.
The government is adamant its strategy to fight coronavirus is the right one. Lives will depend on it. Fergus Walsh, BBC News.
Well, it's been an unprecedented day for sport with the coronavirus outbreak, leading to the suspension of the Premier League until April and the cancellation of Six Nations rugby matches this weekend. Next month's London Marathon has also been postponed. Here's our sports editor, Dan Rowan.
Whether it's football, rugby, golf or Formula One, world sport has come to a standstill. This morning, after an emergency meeting, the Premier League finally confirmed an unprecedented shutdown until at least early April. The decision followed the news that Arsenal manager Mikel Arteta had tested positive for coronavirus. Callum Hudson-Odoi then becoming the first player to confirm he had the disease.
Hi guys, as you may be aware, I had the virus for the last couple of days, which I've recovered from. I'm following the health guidelines and self-isolating myself from everybody for the week.
Liverpool have enjoyed a glittering season, but with the club on the brink of a cherished title, the fans have been left in limbo.
It's disappointing, but yeah, 30 years. We've waited 30 years for the title. We can wait another 3 or 4 months. But typical Liverpool, we can only do it the hard way. So hopefully we'll do it in the next few months.
It is quite tough, but it's only suspended. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not cancelled, so we'll still be there.
With a host of clubs with players now in isolation, the whole of the English professional game has been suspended. Those in the cash-strapped Football League facing an uncertain financial future.
We've got 6 home games left.
And if we don't play them, we'll be looking at a £250,000 hole in our finances at least. It's very worrying for any industry, which football is, that relies on people paying to come and watch it for the majority of its income and all the associated things. It's extremely worrying.
With British football entirely derailed, matches in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland were also suspended. Here at Anfield, they'll be desperate for the campaign to resume, but senior figures within the sport fear that may prove impossible and the season is abandoned. That would be cruel on clubs like this and hugely damaging to the game as a whole. But it's not just football. The pandemic sending world sport into meltdown. This afternoon, next month's London Marathon was postponed until October. The start of the Formula One season won't start until May, with 4 races now cancelled. In golf, the prestigious Masters tournament was postponed. And on a chaotic day, tomorrow's Six Nations rugby between Wales and Scotland was first declared on and then off.
For us to be the only sporting event going on when other people were mindful of the obviously seriousness of the situation. And I think we just took into account supporters, players, our staff. Was it really essential to maybe subject them to that risk?
And what of the biggest show of all? Today, the symbolic Greek leg of the Olympic torch relay cancelled amid mounting concern over Tokyo 2020.
As you can see in Europe, the situation is still dire. Italy, the hardest hit country in the area, is still reeling from this outbreak, virtually shut down as the number of deaths there continues to rise. But it's not all doom and gloom. After all, people have to do something while they're stuck in quarantine. ABC's James Longman has more on that.
Every day in Italy, it seems a new tragic record is broken. Today, the biggest single jump in fatalities. More than 1,200 are now lost to this relentless infection, and a 4th day of complete isolation for millions. Schools closed, restaurants shuttered. Images of China's deserted streets were the first to shock the world. Now, the people of Europe are retreating into their homes as the virus approaches. And while most people are heeding officials' calls to keep to themselves, some are naturally getting a bit bored and creative. This man in Rome wore a large cylindrical disc around his body to keep others away while he was at a market. In Naples, solidarity. Unable to meet in person, neighbours unite in song. And in Italy's northern city of Turin, locals enjoyed aperitivos from their balconies, while a disco ball shed some much-needed light. Tutti insieme! And who needs a vacation when you have each other? This Australian couple recreating their cancelled cruise from their living room. And this tender moment between a brother and sister in America. He's autistic and scared of the virus. She teaches him a Bible verse to calm him down.
But power, love, and a sound mind. Amen.
While people around the world find joy where they can, the fight to stem the tide goes on. US and Korean armies banding together to disinfect an apartment complex in Daegu. For those under voluntary quarantine, a palpable sense of responsibility to keep others at bay. This woman in the UK showed us her daily amount of human interaction.
Who is it?
Hint, it's not much.
I'm under quarantine. Do you mind just leaving it at the door for me, please? Thank you. Oh, great, lovely. Thank you so much. Have a good day. You too.
And she's not the only one. I too have to undergo quarantine after reporting from Italy earlier this week. Like millions of others, not fighting off a disease, but boredom.
So it's quite boring. Between lives, I have every intention of reading my books, but actually, in the end, I'm just watching a Mark Wahlberg movie because, you know, Mark Wahlberg.
Cut off from the nightmare, it's important to find lighter moments, but also remember those living it. Each night, people across the country set down a simple tribute to their heroes. This is Georgia in Milan.
We lit up candles every night here because we want to feel united, even if we cannot see each other, even if we cannot touch each other. We want to pay an invisible but strong homage to all the doctors and nurses that are constantly working to help us here.
And James joins me live from London now. James, we know you're in self-quarantine. We hope you were finding little moments of joy the same way these people are.
I have been. I mean, you saw there, I've been watching a lot of television, Diane. I've been trying to read my books. I managed to get a water rower into this apartment, but I have just found out, I thought I rented it for a week. It turns out I rented it for 3 months. So that was a little bit of a surprise. I'm not great with maths. But
in Iran, graves are being dug at an unusual speed in the cemetery in Qom. People in protective suits carry a coffin. Inside the cemetery's morgue, officials attempt to manage the situation. The government attempted to downplay the spread of the virus.
موافق نیستیم قرنطینه مال قبل جنگ جهانی اول مال طاعون و وبا و اینجور چیزا از خود چینی‌ها.
But videos and satellite imagery reveal how the situation quickly worsened after the government's slow response. High-resolution satellite imagery shows a cemetery in Qom undisturbed in October 2019. On February 19th, Iran announced its first 2 cases of coronavirus infections in Qom. But satellite imagery taken shortly after the announcement shows that 2 trenches are seen in the cemetery. Together, their lengths are that of a football field. By early March, we see a video of an overwhelmed morgue and cemetery in Qom. Video from the morgue shows several covered corpses on stretchers and the floor of the facility. There's a box labeled with the name of one of Iran's well-known clerics who died from coronavirus.
پیکر مرحوم خسرو شاهی هست که چند روز اینجا مونده و هنوز تجهیز نشده.
There are several key pieces of evidence in this video and others that indicate the bodies being buried are connected to coronavirus. People burying corpses are in full-body protective medical suits. Iranian authorities confirmed they were using lime seen in the videos to line graves to prevent the spread of the virus within the cemetery. By March 6th, Iran acknowledged that the coronavirus had reached all 31 provinces. Videos emerged on social media of burials from different parts of the country. This clip was apparently taken in Saqqez, northwest Iran. The narrator is speaking with a regional accent. There appears to be piles of white powder beside the open graves. In another video, taken at the Bagrazvan cemetery of Urumia in northwest Iran, there are government officials and men in protective gear at the site. We identified these officials because red license plates in Iran belong to government vehicles. While the Iranian government appears to have improved their response,
سفرها رو به حداقل برسونن، تماس‌ها با یکدیگر رو به حداقل برسونن و جداسازی بیماران رو هم کامل انجام بدن.
The Iranian government's initial minimizing of the virus's spread impacts more than just Iran. One country's response can have global consequences.
For a large part of those patients, this severity will reach a need for endotracheal intubation and mechanical ventilation for many days. So we are treating those cases. And this means a long journey in the ICU, a long ICU stays, and many days of ventilation and mechanical ventilation, because the respiratory failure is severe, is reversible, but it takes a lot of resources and a lot of time in order to improve.
We see some of your staff in the background. How are the staff in the hospital there, the San Giovanni Bosco?
We are still opening this block, and we are just admitting now the first patients, and I'm in the clean area. We are really working very hard. We doubled our shifts, and after 10 days, we are already, almost all of us, we are sleep deprived, and that's a problem because we are gonna run a marathon, and we started with a rhythm that we are not sure we'll be able to bear for 1 or 2 months. So, but we cannot do anything else. I mean,
Marco, when you look at, you're obviously and understandably preoccupied with what's happening on the ground in the hospital, in the city, in the region that you are working in. What do you say to other countries around the world?
Yeah, to other countries, I have a lot of contacts with colleagues. I've been contacted by media outlets and colleagues all over the world in the last 4 or 5 days. And I'm trying to spread the word as fast as we can. Get prepared as soon as possible, because the only way to prevent healthcare system collapse is to enforce a lockdown as soon as possible, to increase your ICU capacity and your hospitalization capacity, and to use simulation and to train in using PPEs, personal protective equipment, because it's crucial. Because if a lot of healthcare staff get sick in the first few weeks, then you will not have anybody able to take care of the patients.
Yeah, on that, Marco, have you and your colleagues, the healthcare professionals, are you? I know you said you're sleep deprived. Are you holding up in terms of being infected by this virus yourselves?
Yeah, I have a couple of colleagues who had tested positive last week. So we were tested and I'm negative now. I have to repeat my test on Tuesday. And I know of colleagues in the red zones in Lombardia where they were overwhelmed by patients that refused to be tested as they were asymptomatic, and they chose to continue to treat infected patients and working with suspect infected colleagues because the workforce is really scarce, and ICU patients need very specialized staff, both clinicians and doctors and both nurses. Nurses are the real heroes of this epidemic and this emergency.
Yeah. Just finally, Marco, I know you said that you're focusing on trying to expand capacity. You're standing in a room that is now being turned into a ward. Does Italy and your region have that excess capacity to draw on? And how important is it to have those things in place when you're looking at other countries early on?
Yeah. I'm not sure that all regions in Italy will be able to do the same as Lombardy. Lombardy is one of the richest and with the largest leading teaching hospitals, and they are making extraordinary efforts. And also we have the advantage of having them some 10 days ahead of us. So we will take the opportunity to learn from them. We are sharing information very quickly with colleagues. We have daily webinars and networks to share information. We are really making extraordinary efforts because this is an unprecedented situation for all of us. And I hope that other countries, but I cannot predict what will happen in countries with less efficient healthcare systems and also less abilities to create networks and to collaborate, because we cannot work in a silo. We have to work in a network. Okay, so we have a responsibility for all the patients, not only for the patients that we admit in our specific hospital.
Marco, just finally, when you started on this career journey, I mean, did you ever expect to be in this situation right now? I'm aware you probably have prepared for it very well, but now it's here.
No.
How do you feel?
It's surreal sometimes. And also, I think that the lockdown and the emergency sparked a lot of feelings and solidarity and strengthened a lot of people and characters. We discovered and we realized that we are more probably resilient than we thought just last month. I'm prepared to treat those patients because those are respiratory failures and this is my daily job. But for sure, nobody was prepared to treat so many patients at the same time. So this is unprecedented for us.
Yeah, Marco, thank you so much for taking this time to speak to us. We wish you all the very best and hopefully speak to you again soon.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.